Hello and welcome to Secrets Mystery Manor. I'm your host, Psychic Zelda Kelly. Warning: this podcast may contain sensitive material. It is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer and listening discretion is advised. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Secrets Mystery Manor. I'm Zelda Kelly, and today I thought I would bring to you some short stories, some that I think that are very interesting, mainly two that are very personal to me. So without further ado, I would like to bring to you this podcast, and we're going to call it Zelda Goes a Haunting. And oh yes, when Zelda goes a haunting, you can bet we're going to find some really, really cool and juicy little stories. The first one I want to bring to you, I really like, and it's actually in Ripley's Believe It or Not. And the museum curator in Atlanta has actually told me that this is a verified fact. So this is one of the reasons that I want to bring this to you. And I think that in the end, you'll know who the characters are. At least I hope you do. But I want to bring this to you because I think it's very interesting and it's a part of history. So without further ado, in a Scottish mansion many, many years ago, in the mid-18th century, there's a young lady who is dying. She's on her deathbed, and her husband is close by, and everyone is in tears. It's very mournful, and it's a very sad scene, and she's weak, and she knows that she's dying, and she's not going to live. So she tells her husband that she has one last wish that she wants. And he said anything at all. And her name is Mary. Mary said that she had never worn the diamond bracelet that, or the pearl necklace that he had bought her for her birthday, and that she was saving them for a very special occasion and for a very beautiful ball that was coming up later on that year. So the husband, his name is Walter, decided that he was just going to try to encourage her and say, look, you don't have to worry. I know this seems dismal right now, but you'll be wearing that beautiful jewelry and that beautiful necklace and the bracelet soon enough, and you're going to go to the ball. And while he was in the middle of telling her this, Mary passes away. So later on, as horrible and hurtful that the scene was, the mortician approaches Walter and says, look, Walter, I get it. I think you need to be aware that jewelry is worth a fortune. Do not put that on Mary, because as you know, back then in the mid-18th century, there was a lot of grave robbery and robbings. And he was warning her or warning him about her, and said, I don't think that you should do this. I just don't think you should. So in the morning, the next morning of the funeral, the servants and the laborers on the estate file past the coffin, and they go do this because they want to pay their respects. And they notice, that there is this beautiful necklace, beautiful bracelet that she has on. And so they started whispering among each other. And so all of a sudden, they take notice that, this may be worth something. Can't trust anybody, right? Your own servants, own people, can't trust them. So there was a little plot that was made. And they said the night that they buried her, they were going to dig her grave and take the jewels and nobody would know the difference. No one. No one. So that later that night, and I guess it was a dismal night. I mean, after all, let's set the center stage for this. I mean, right? We're in a cemetery. We're in a particular area now that it is dismal and rainy and cloudy, and you can just kind of hear the rumbling and the thunder in the background. And yeah, it's one of those times, right? Definitely scary movie worthy. So they make this little plan. And he says, okay, now I'm going to dig her up. And as soon as I do, you open up the coffin lid. And then I'll grab the jewels. Nobody's going to know. And they got to her grave and they started digging. And so they got really tired. And they took a rest. And they started digging again. And then all of a sudden, they got to her coffin. And so the one says, I'll force open the coffin lid. And in no time at all, the jewels will be ours. And we can put it all back. Nobody's going to know the difference. They're not going to notice that the dirt on the top of the grave is fresh because they just buried her today after all. So anyway, they are talking among themselves of how creepy and horrible this was because after all, there were other graves around them, other dead people around them. I mean, during this time, it was an extremely suspicious time where many people were really affected by this type of scene and setting. So anyway, they opened up the coffin lid, and just as they did, Mary opens her eyes, and what does she say? Help me. Now, that would be enough right now. I would just turn tail and run. You have to worry. I would not even, I would probably be running until the morning, right? I know you would be too. Now that's creepy. So she starts speaking and says, help me, I'm so cold. Where am I? I'm so cold. And these two clumsy buffoon criminals bump into each other. They're falling all over each other. They're running. And she raises up out of the coffin and says, please, please help me. The next morning, the grave, I guess the caretakers were there. And one looks over and says, oh my gosh, look at that. This lady was buried yesterday and they robbed her grave already. How horrible is that? That's just totally insane. That's just crazy. So they went over there, they looked at her, and the one looked at the other gentleman and said, oh my gosh, she's still alive. And he took off running. They got the doctor and they came back. Later on, the doctor told poor Walter, who had been there mourning her, feeling sorry that she was gone, came back and said, sir, this is a miracle. She went into a trance resembling a death. And he said, you know what? I believe she's going to be all right. Now, at that point, I would have said, now, doc, right? I mean, let's think about this. Doc, after all, you were the one who pronounced her dead. I mean, what did you do to be able to do that? Did you just look at her? I mean, what were the signs? Okay, so he messed up, right? Okay, no malpractice there after all. So Walter says to the doctor, you know, if we hadn't have buried her with the jewels, we would have never known. Think about that. That's an attitude for you. Instead of Walter being flipped out about the doctor, I would have, you know what, you know you would have. I would be. But he's looking at another bright side of this, and that's the side that you have to stop and think. If it hadn't been for these jewel thieves, they would have never found that Mary was still alive. And they would have buried her alive, and nobody would have heard her. She was buried. So, although her health later on down the road remained very, as they say back then, delicate, she was very weak, but they went to the ball to celebrate her recovery. And Mary wore the bracelet and the necklace that Walter gave to her for her birthday. Isn't that sweet? That's kind of a sweet story. I like these stories that end up with a really happy ending like this, and I think that this is a happy ending, but oh, don't go yet. Wait, wait, wait. When you hear this, you're going to say, holy mackerel, I never even knew that. So Mary lived for many years. I'm glad. I'm glad of that. Now, here's the part that I think is really interesting. She became the mother of Sir Walter Scott, the novelist who wrote Ivanhoe. Now, that just gives me chills. Well, think about this. If these thieves would not have, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm letting your imagination go wild on this one. If these thieves would not have broken into her grave that night, tried to take this jewelry from her, they would have never known. It's a miracle, actually, that she laid in this damp, dark, horrible graveyard all night after her coffin was dug up and that the caretakers found her and she was still alive. Oh my goodness. Think about that. But there was a destiny behind this one, that's for sure. Because Sir Walter Scott, if you'd ever take the time or have a chance to read Ivanhoe, oh my goodness, it's a wonderful, wonderful classic piece of literature. And I don't know, you may want to have that as a little assignment. If you have a Kindle, or if you can pull up that book, you can get a free copy on Kindle. And we're not sponsored, but I'm just telling you that because I think it's important to read some of these classics. But isn't that amazing? I just think this is one of the most amazing stories that I've ever heard. And I just love it. I know you do too. I know you love hearing these stories that are kind of creepy, but there's a great ending that comes out of it. And bless Mary, she made it through to fulfill her destiny, and that was to have Sir Walter Scott, who penned Ivanhoe. I love that. I love that. So thank you so much for allowing me to bring that to you. And one more little tidbit of information there that I want to give to you. After the doctor and mortician pronounced Mary dead earlier on, the husband Walter told the mortician he did not want her to be embalmed. Wow. Now, I didn't even know that they had embalming back then, but maybe so, I guess. Because, you know, they'd always fixed up the graves sometimes because they knew these things had happened. In fact, here's another little tidbit I'm going to give you. Many times they were concerned about burying someone that was not really, well, you know, dead. And they would put a little string around the toe of the person. They would run the string through, and they would actually put it around the finger of the same person, and then up through the coffin, and they would put a little, I guess, a pulley, and then they would fashion a little bell. And if someone woke up during whatever, after they had been buried, they could ring that bell. And many times, in many instances, that happened. Now, isn't that amazing? But I know that you've heard this. There is a phrase that goes along with that, and that is, it is a dead ringer. I know you've heard that before. That's where that saying comes from, a dead ringer. So that's number one story. I thought I'd bring that to you. And now this next story is pretty interesting. Okay, so my next story is something that has been happening to me personally and to my family. 3 years ago, my son and I moved into a condominium in Middle Georgia temporarily while house hunting and deciding really what area we would like to go into. And there we have a ground floor unit, and above us are two separate units that are built, I guess you can say, like townhomes, that they have a second floor to them. So the condominium is divided upstairs. I have two above me, let me say that. On the one side, when we first moved in, was a young man who was going to college. On the other side was a young man going to college, but we didn't know what he was doing. At first we thought, okay, he's got visitors coming in and out all day, all night, all day. You have it. Okay, so, but then a short while later, young women would come over and we would start hearing screaming. Now, I know what you're thinking. It wasn't that type of scream. These were frightening screams. These were screams of helping, of fear, being scared. And these were different girls. And when it would all be over, they would leave in a rush and they would never come back. So one night it was just so absolutely intense that my son actually was going to go upstairs and see what was going on. Now, I stopped him because, as much as we wanted to help, that's kind of a frightening situation. You don't know what you're going to be walking into. So the police were called. The police went upstairs and literally found nothing, including no young woman. Now, we saw her go in, and we did not see her go out. There's not a back entrance except off of a steep patio deck that is built up one story from the ground floor, and she certainly didn't drop off that. We don't know what happened. So the police said, they didn't really take it too seriously, and that was it. Well, this had gone on now, this screaming and carrying on for quite some time. And this man upstairs would come downstairs in the daytime and would stand across the street and would stare over at our condo. Now, I'm going to tell you, talk about unnerving. It was like you were just sitting in a situation waiting for something to happen. We were careful. I mean, literally careful. We made sure that our back door was blocked. We made sure that all the windows and doors were locked at night. And it just got to the point where we were unnerved. If we would go outside and we saw him, he would turn real quickly and run upstairs and run into his condos. This is not the actions of someone who did not have something that he was more or less doing. So I was working on another psychic line at the time, and the screaming started. And those clients who called in on the other psychic line could literally hear the screaming upstairs. Well, I just had to fluff it off really as, oh, well, they're watching horror movies upstairs. They're it's Halloween in the summer. It's whatever. And once again, the police were called, not this time by us, but by another neighbor, because it was that loud. The police came. They looked around. They went into the backyard. They didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, they came up his steps. We watched them. He came to the door, said, no, nothing is in. He opened the door. Now, they did not go in, but there was no one there. So it was just very odd and nerve-wracking. And the police knew what we had been going through, but you can't do anything about all this. Can't say, well, yeah, this guy is standing across the street looking at me and he's making me really nervous. So lo and behold, it wasn't very long after that we saw a moving van come up. And he started taking all these containers. Now he moved by himself. No one was there. You never saw any parents or anyone come in. This is a college town I live in, so there's always parents around these condos. And never saw any of that. So he was taking these large containers out. Now this is a true story. I'm not kidding. Large containers out, put them in a U-Haul, and the next thing you know, he was gone. And it was quiet and peaceful. So we thought. Within a week, we started hearing knocking in my unit downstairs. And here's the really weird part of this. The knocking were coming in from behind closet doors, interior doors, the knocking. Now, talk about unnerving. Lying in bed at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you hear a knock on the inside of your closet door. Do you open it? Many times I would get up, turn a light on, obviously. I might be in this field, but hey, sometimes I'm still a wiener, right? It's a healthy thing. I would open the door and nothing would be there. Then we would start hearing voices. Now, many of you know I like cats. I have cats, and they are paranormal cats. They let me know when things are around or when I need to be concerned or any of these things. And funny enough, one night they just really started meowing, this guttural meow. I wish I had a recording. I would stick it in here for you, but I don't. And behold, there was a table close to the hallway, or 2 bedrooms and a hall bath that splits the 2 bedrooms. And this young man, and I call him a young man, my young kitty, my young boy jumps on the hall table and he starts putting his head up in the air and he's looking in the corner of the hall. Then he starts meowing this real funny meow. Well, I go out into the living room, I take my phone, and I start recording this, and there are orbs all over the place. You couldn't see them with the naked eye, but you could sure see them. And he would be following those orbs, meowing, looking. So, okay, fine. These things happen. Great. All right. We're good. Right? All right. It's going to go away. Don't have to worry about it. So then I have a Facebook Live. And during the Facebook Live, many people are in the chat saying, who's in the room with you? Now, I was in my bedroom with the door closed, so the kitties would not come and disturb us, because they always like to come and disturb, on camera. Yeah, they're not camera shy. And lo and behold, I keep saying lo and behold, right? Okay, so before you know it, people in the chat were like, who in the world is in there with you? We can hear someone say, help, and mommy, and mom, and help. And it was, I turned the camera around, showed everyone that no one was in my room, not even a little kitty. And I went on with the podcast. Maybe I'll try to include that little clip in here. So it was really different. It was really different. And the air was odd and weird. And so the knocking would continue and the cats would be meowing. One night I was sitting in the living room after a shift, and I worked until usually 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I heard this knocking. And I keep the hall door to the bathroom shut because my little fur babies love to go in and play in the tub. And you can imagine the carrying on and the chasing the tail and the noise, and they chase bottles around, and whatever trouble they can get into in the bathroom, they will get into. Try to open up the doors, try to get into the under the sink. You get the picture. So I keep the bathroom door closed. So my cat Bilbo, and he's named that because when he was born, his little back legs, his little feet were so long, he was Bilbo. So we call him Bilby. So Bilbo was on the table in the hallway, and he starts this guttural meow. This time it was really weird. And I mean, like you're on the set of this B movie. Now the air is starting to feel weird, and the light in the living room is flickering. Just then, I see the light that I have above the vent on the stove turns out, and I could hear the switch. You know, you have that little switch on the vent that turns the light on above the stovetop. I heard that. So I knew things were ramping up, and it was just getting really, really too weird. I had the light on in the bathroom in the hallway, so there was enough light coming up underneath the door that when the lights were out in the living room and in the kitchen, I could see some things. Next thing you know, I see a shadow walking in the bathroom. Now, no cat is in there. Nothing is in there. Now I've got the cats coming over to me. And now I know when that happens, there's something nefarious getting ready to happen. Something weird, something odd is getting ready to happen. I go over and I open up the bathroom door. I want to see what's in there. Nothing. I turn around. I hear a click. It was the light in the kitchen on the vent above the stove turns back on. I thought, oh, okay. I looked in there and said, okay, thanks. I go and sit down again. I get my phone out. My phone starts draining, and I'm starting to try to record, and my screen is going black. Bilby is on the table going crazy, and the door to the bathroom that I had opened and did not close moves just enough, moves just a little bit. Well, I went over and I opened the door completely up, kept the light on. Now I'm sitting in an angle in the living room where I can see the door full on. What do you think I see? There's a shadow behind the bathroom door. Now, the door opens up to a wall. There's absolutely no room for anything, including a cat, between the door and the wall. But there was something there, because I could see the shadow in the crack of the door where the hinge and the door frame meet. I could see something moving around back there. Yeah, talk about unnerving. That certainly was. But not yet. You haven't heard the best part. So now I'm sitting there watching all this. Bilbo goes quiet, and everything is so quiet. You could just literally hear a pin drop. I was literally waiting for something to jump out and do the jump scare. No kidding. That's the air. That's how it felt. Next thing you know, I hear the click, and the light goes off in the kitchen above the stove and the vent. Next thing you know, just a few seconds later, the bathroom light goes off. Now, the light from the front window of the condo, there's a security light out there, so it was lit enough that I could see everything going on. And I couldn't believe my eyes, because once that light went out in the, pardon me, in the bathroom, these long fingers came out between the door frame and the door in that little crack right underneath the hinge. So whatever it was couldn't have been maybe 4 or 5 inches from the floor. Long fingers come out and stick through and wrap themselves around the door. Just real slow. That movie slow, one finger at a time, wrapping around the door, and held it there. My cat Bilbo, at that point, went crazy, growling, hissing. I ran over and I grabbed him. And I have a little cat. She's very, very little, who is braver than brave and blind in one eye. When something like this is going on, she will jump up and lay right around my neck. It's her little warning sign. I don't think she's afraid. I think she's trying to protect me and see, because I do believe a cat will see and can see into another dimension. These fingers stayed there just for a few seconds. All of these things are going on. The next thing you know, the fingers withdraw just as slowly as they did when the fingers were coming out. They just withdrew behind the door, and that was it. I went over, turned the bathroom light on, looked behind the door, and obviously nothing was there. So the next day I called the landlord and I said, I think something had been going on upstairs. I just have this feeling. I know you know that landlord that owns that condo unit up there. It wouldn't be such a bad idea to maybe check in with him. Oh, it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. I didn't hear anything. And now the landlord from upstairs starts going up there and he's ripping out everything. This was, oh my goodness, a major renovation. This went on for probably 2 weeks and the activity ramped up again. But they tore everything out of this condo, down to the baseboards, down to the walls, to the studs, tore off the bathroom tub, the tile that went around the bathroom tub. We could see what was coming out of that condo. In fact, they even had a construction dumpster outside here. We could see what was coming out here. This wasn't just one of your little baby renovations. This was a full-on rebuild. Before you know it, the renovation was complete. Everything was done. They re-rented the condo up above us to a young lady that lives up there. She's quiet. Every now and then we hear her playing music. We smile. Certainly a lot better than hearing screaming from a B horror movie. I don't think we'll ever know what that was or what happened, but that certainly was an experience, and I know that it was connected to the upstairs. Will I ever know what that is? I doubt it. Have I asked? I certainly have. They either know and they're not telling, or they know and they don't want to tell. But whatever it was, it's gone now. And I was able to get rid of whatever was lingering behind. So I wanted to share that with you and let you know that sometimes the experiences that we are, well, we experience, right? The circumstances that we experience can be downright scary. And I would be lying to you if I told you, oh no, I wasn't scared at all. I don't know if I was scared or if I was intrigued and scared, or just, I don't know what it was, but it was an emotion that just made my hair stand up. And seeing the cats like that, they don't do that unless there's something with an evil intention. Do I believe that that young man that was previously renting the upstairs condo had something to do with it? Absolutely, yes, 1,000%. I think he was paranoid, thinking that we knew what he was doing. We will never know what he took out in so many of those tubs. And they were bigger tubs. They weren't these little smaller ones that you usually move with. They were bigger and had many. I don't know. Could be innocent enough. I'm not accusing him of anything. But I can tell you certainly one thing is that I hope that I don't go through another haunting like that here again. I wanted to share that with you. You're not alone if you're going through scary hauntings. You're not alone. But I thought that was a story worth telling. Now, we're going to take a break for a little announcement, and we'll be right back. Thanks for waiting. Times have changed. We no longer seek a psychic advisor to make sure that our kingdom is safe, or that our crops and our livestock will be plentiful, or that our crops will grow, or that we will not be cursed by the witch of the north. Times have changed for sure, and that's why we ask you to stop on over to psychicsecrets.com. You can chat with a psychic advisor there, really about any topic you'd like, but it's not the same as what it used to be in the old days. There's not that fear factor that's involved. You can seek guidance and direction. You can ask questions about family and friends, about your children. So you don't have to worry about being haunted any longer. Just stop on over to Psychic Secrets. You can chat with an advisor, talk with an advisor, and you can even have a video call. So stop on over, take a look at our website, read our blog. You can see past podcasts. You can actually stop on over to the Laws of Attraction section. We're there to help. That's the main thing. So if you have questions, don't be fearful. You're not haunted. Stop on over to psychicsecrets.com. We'll be glad to help you, and you'll be glad that you did. Take care. Thank you so much for listening. Now back to the podcast. Hello, and I want to just take a minute and thank you for being here with us at Secrets Mystery Manor. We love having you, and we love sharing with you. If you do find that you are enjoying this program, we do want to hear. Please leave a comment or contact us on the website at www.psychicsecrets.com. That's www.psychicsecrets.com. You can go on there and you can visit our blog. That's a lot of fun to read a lot about different subjects. You can also listen and review previous podcasts. We now have a new Laws of Attractions. No, I can't even talk. We now have a new Laws of Attractions section. We would just love it if you would just come and hang out with us. Okay, so back to the story. This is a little unsettling for me, and I don't know why. My son is okay. Everybody is okay. My son moved out a few months ago and is living in an apartment with some of his buddies. They're sharing. Good way to save money. Good way to just hang out. They're starting to move on in life. Life is they're working, getting married, just maturing, growing older, experiencing life, heading into new chapters. So when they moved in, my son obviously did not have any furniture. He had a few things with him, of course, personal things. One of his friends was able to furnish this apartment, very nice apartment, and everyone is very, very thankful. Well, there were a few things that started happening, I would say maybe about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. And I'll get to that, how they all talked about it. But my son was experiencing some light touches. He would be laying in bed, You'd feel a depression on the bed, or they would feel a brush up against him or something like that. Really didn't think a thing about it. Didn't, didn't really faze him. A few days later, he would hear someone walk down the hall. A little later, he would go out of his room, and across, catacornered from his room entrance, is the hall bathroom, and he would go across the room into the bathroom, and out of the corner of his eye started seeing someone standing at the end of the hall. All right, so he didn't think too much about it. He just, we would do a double take and no one would be there, so that's okay, Go back in his room, and then more little things started happening. And he would hear someone take a breath. There would be another glance or two of someone actually peeking around the corner of the hall. Yeah, that one kind of got to me. I know it does to you too. He's not affected. I mean, after all, he is my son. He kind of grew up with this thing, so, life is kind of spooky with a spooky little girl like me, right? So, nothing really. I've visited there and I didn't really feel anything, so it's not really harmful or anything. But then he would hear someone walk down the hall again, and they would hear some knocks. So he went to his other buddy that is actually on the other side of the apartment, and they started comparing notes and asking questions, giving answers. And now I got to tell you, the other two young men that are living in the same apartment do not believe in the paranormal. Oh, they've heard of it. I don't think they really have an opinion. They're not against it. They just have never experienced it. Well, until now. So this young man on the other side of the apartment was sharing notes with my son and basically saying that he was seeing some things, maybe hearing something, that sort of thing. They were actually playing games on their computers, and the microphones are hooked up to the computers or into their gaming equipment. And one of the other young men thought they heard my son in the kitchen. And of course, there was no one there, and my son said, well, obviously I can't be sitting in here in my room talking on the microphone if I'm in the kitchen. Well, okay, so now they all start comparing notes, and they're all sort of kind of seeing the same things. At one point, one of the young men saw something in the living room that was sitting in a particular chair, and with the back of the chair towards the hallway. And I'm going to insert a few little pictures so you kind of can get an idea. If you're looking down the hallway from my son's room and into the living room, you're going to see this chair. Now, the chair has been reupholstered, or it has a slip cover. Whatever the case may be, it is not original, but the chair is. So this young man said that he thought he saw someone sitting in the chair. And sometimes you sit in a chair and maybe a young man or old man, or maybe one of us, cross our legs. And, it's where you put your ankle, your foot over your knee, sit there, relax. Well, that's what he thought he saw, just just a glance. And of course, they come to my son and say, hey, we saw this, or hey, we heard this, or whatever. So this chair, this particular chair, and again, I'm going to post some pictures in the bottom of the podcast here. You'll be able to see that if you want to take a look at it, is in the living room, and its function is to sit at Like they have a really nice desk in there that you can just sit down and use the computer if you want to, and it's relaxing. But the chair was in a particular place one time. My son and his roommates actually came out in the living room and noticed that the chair had been moved, and none of them had moved it. So my son was home alone, and he decided to take a couple of EVPs. Now, I'm not going to put the whole EVP in. I have marked a spot. It's very, very short. You may have to turn up the sound a little bit, and I apologize if it's loud. But my son is asking if there is someone there.
There's a device here on the counter. If you speak into that device, why are you here?
Now, I have heard a breath in this EVP, but I've also heard a whistle. You may hear that as well. Let me know if you hear anything more. But I'm not going to put the whole EVP in there. It's a couple of minutes long. I'm just going to put this little excerpt in there, okay? Tell me what you think of that. So we're trying to figure out exactly what is causing this. And lo and behold, the only thing that we can really come to the conclusion is that it is this particular chair. This chair is about 100 years old and belonged to the grandmother of one of the young men who actually had the apartment first and invited the other ones, including my son, to come in and live. So we don't think it's anything evil. I really think it's a loop or a residual. But just a couple of days ago, my son was home alone again and was actually working on his computer and had some headphones on and heard a breath in the headphones. And then, of course, there was some other something or other noise that he had heard. And so it's continuing, but it seems like it's ramping up a little bit. So I've asked if they want me to come down, and they've said no. And that's okay. They're going to handle it the way they feel fit and see fit. My son certainly knows what to do and can help guide and direct what they need to do in order to make sure that this is not going to be a bother. Are they a little unnerved? Yes, I'm going to say that they are right now. Um, they get tapped and they get, breaths and chairs moving. Like I said, it's starting to increase a little bit more and more. What the purpose is of this entity, I don't know. What it could be, I don't know. Now, I do not believe it's the grandmother, and I don't want really just because of this certain, and I'm going to keep that private, that information private. So, and I know that right away everybody's going, oh, this is the grandmother. No, my darlings, I don't see that it is. There's other information around the chair, and like I said, I am going to give them that privacy. But I wanted to share that with you, and I will come back and give you updates as we go along. So, I don't know. We'll see. Does it bother me as a mom? Kind of. But, like I said, these young men are of age. They know what's going on. They know what to do. So, anyway, that is the conclusion of the stories that I have to bring to you today. Zelda goes a haunting. Believe me, I can find stories. I know people that are being haunted right now, obviously. Even myself, I have been experiencing a few things really of late. So I want to thank you again for stopping by Secrets Manor. And if you get a chance, come on over to my Facebook page. That is House of Zelda over there. Now, I want to tell you that Psychic Secrets are really so generous. They will give us all types of different ads and incentives, and they really will help out if you need to have a call. If you're a first-time caller to Psychic Secrets, again, my name is Zelda Kelly, and I'm an extension 11, but we've got some great advisors on there. Also, you can chat, have a phone call, you can do a video call, so whatever is convenient for you. But our first-time caller special is $1 per minute for up to 30 minutes. Now, I'll tell you what, we can get a lot accomplished in 30 minutes. It's very exciting, and it is very, well, it gives you a little relief. You can take a breath of a relief sometimes when you just get a confirmation or you get a little guidance and a little direction in an area that you really feel you need. So they run specials, and I post them in House of Zelda on Facebook. And you can also find me on Twitter. I'm House of Zelda there. And you can find me on Instagram. I am on at Psychic Zelda Kelly on Instagram. And Psychic's Secrets are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So again, I want to thank you for stopping by. And stop on over to the website, because when you go into the podcast section, you can scroll down and see that there is a place where it says Make a Haunted Request. If there's something that you'd like to hear or know about, leave us a note, won't you? You can leave a comment there. You can leave a note, say hello, whatever you'd like to do. But we surely would love to hear from you. So again, we thank you. And I want to say, you be blessed, you be bold, you be brave, and come back. We love to have you. And we post these every week. Thanks again, folks. And we'll talk to you very soon. This is Zelda Kelly signing off for now. Bye-bye. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. I just love this, don't you?